Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with the latest NXT edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are here to break down everything that happened in NXT over the last week. We're also going to take a second look at NXT Stand and Deliver 2025, and as a special unexpected segment, Vintage Chris Vanini will be joining to discuss the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2025. We have a loaded show ahead for you, so off the top, let me remind you to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. If you do, you will get full-length audio every single episode available on that medium. Also, full-length video interviews as well. We have 2 in the can already for 2025 with Vic Joseph and, of course, Drew McIntyre. Don't forget to link up with us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. As you heard on our 3 instant analysis podcasts over the weekend, your questions and comments that you submit on social media do make their way to the show. So that's another reason to follow us again on Twitter at Getting Overcast and on Blue Sky at Getting Over. Speaking of the episodes that are already in the podcast feed, waiting for your ear holes, just a reminder, we have not 1, not 2, but 3 instant analysis, as mentioned, from NXT Stand and Deliver and both nights of WWE WrestleMania 41. Truly hope you have listened to all those shows already. Also, on Tuesday, we posted our latest WWE episode, largely focusing on the Raw after WrestleMania and the major storyline changes and angles and characters that were revealed on Monday night. But of course, it is also a second look at WWE WrestleMania 41. Additional thoughts on the show, a huge conversation on The Rock, another one on Pat McAfee, and there was also some wrapping up of the SmackDown before WrestleMania as well. So a loaded extra WWE show. I say extra, it's the weekly WWE show. That's already in the can. Obviously, we're talking the WWE Hall of Fame and NXT today. And then Friday morning, we will have a 2-week wrap-up of everything that happened across AEW. Now, the Silver King does have a ton to say about NXT Stand and Deliver. The second look, of course, we're going to break down the entire 2-hour episode of NXT as well. But let's welcome Vintage to the program. As mentioned, we're going to run through the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2025. Originally planning to do this on next week's WWE episode. But number one, we already have a ton to talk about for next week's show. We're going to get the SmackDown after WrestleMania, which is supposed to be pretty loaded. And of course, so much happened during the Raw after WrestleMania that we know Monday night is going to be packed. And if you know the Silver King and you know Vintage, that means we're probably in for another 2-hour show next Tuesday right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Also, I looked back at what we did after WrestleMania last year, and we ended up talking about the WWE Hall of Fame in this spot. So Vintage is still on site. He's not home with his normal setup, but I'm going to bring him in right now to talk about the WWE Hall of Fame. Chris, did you watch this live on, what was it, Friday night, or did you watch it on Saturday, Sunday? What was your situation?
I tried. I watched it like it was midnight my time, so I did turn it on, but I was in bed, and I got through Lex Luger and fell asleep. And then I don't think I watched it until I watched it Sunday while doing work around the house. And actually turned out to be a pretty good thing to just kind of like get work done too. So yes, I watched the whole thing, just didn't get it live because that was late as hell.
Yeah, I mean, my situation was similar in that I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to bed, but I'll put it on and I'll just see how much I get through. Usually at night, I like to spend a couple hours in bed by myself. I mean, I'm by myself normally, but just decompressing, not in front of a computer, not using my phone, watching a movie or a TV show, whatever the case. And look, my life has been so consumed by watching and rewatching all these wrestling shows really for the last 8 days that, I mean, I got to tell you, it's just been a whirlwind of not watching other stuff and having my brain completely wired to wrestling. So I was like, you know what, man, I don't know that I want to spend a large portion of my Saturday watching this. So let me put it on and see how long I can get into it. I watched the entire red carpet, which I actually always find kind of entertaining for the Hall of Fame, unlike other, situations where they do pre-shows. So I watched that, and I did get through Lex Luger's induction as well. And then just like you, I fell asleep. But unlike you, I actually woke up to Triple H beginning his speech. I don't know why. I guess I had to go to the bathroom or something. but I missed Shawn Michaels' intro, and Hunter was talking, and I'm like, I don't know. Let's just see if I stay up. And I ended up staying up, and little did I know that it was going to last like an hour. I think it was an hour and 6 minutes. So I finished that, went back to bed, woke up the next day, watched the entire middle portion, and then I had to try to piece it all together because I didn't have any notes in front of me. So this is going to be a very odd, I think, breakdown of the WWE Hall of Fame, but let's go ahead and do it. The only true issue I had, other than the time, which was absolutely ridiculous, and we've stated this a few times already, they cannot do this again after SmackDown. It should be on Thursday or earlier in the day, Friday, or something else. I don't even know what the answer is, but it cannot be after a 3-hour SmackDown or even after a 2-hour SmackDown on a Friday night. If it's on the East Coast, maybe you can get away with it if SmackDown's 2 hours and you're starting it at like 10:30 or 11, but you cannot start it at 1 a.m. Eastern. It's as simple as that. But other than that, my only real issue was the bleeping of curse words, especially on the live broadcast. Now, if you on replay want to bleep stuff, that's fine. But an adult who's up at 1 a.m. or even 10 p.m. Pacific, they can hear a shit here or there. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, no, I didn't notice that live because I didn't, again, watch the whole thing live. But it's a fair point. It is late. It's live. The only people staying up are watching that. Whatever.
Yeah. So Jey Uso was clearly drunk while walking the red carpet. He had a couple great lines while being interviewed that we shared on social media, and he definitely fell asleep at one point during the ceremony, as others did, given the time of night and the absurdity of the entire schedule. Booker T claims he was not sleeping, but I mean, it definitely looked like he was. And I promise you, there were at least a few other superstars and notable names who, we know their faces, who were sleeping live on camera while that was happening. Overall, Chris, I did find this to be a pretty great Hall of Fame, if I'm being candid. Visually, the stage presentation, the production of all of it, that was way better than it had been in a long time, certainly since they've been doing it in the ring after SmackDown. WWE created a new Hall of Fame ring that actually sparkles far, far better than the old ones, which, maybe it's the same for Christian people who get confirmed, but when you're Jewish and you get a bar mitzvah, they look like bar mitzvah rings. That's the way I always used to think about them. If I was a legend, especially if I was a big time legend, I would be calling Paul Levesque and whoever my contact is at WWE headquarters, asking for a replacement of my ring with the one that they gave out on Friday night.
I noticed, I saw the ring Triple H was wearing. I was like, oh, it looks different, but I guess I didn't realize how different. So yes, I would like an updated ring if I were a wrestler.
Yeah, these are like a big square. They're gold. There's either diamonds or there's some types of crystals in them, whatever, they sparkle. The old ones were little gold and black. They had that. I forget what it's called. Like maybe it's obsidian, maybe it's something else on top.
I wasn't sure if like each year was a different design.
No, it's been the same forever. No, this is the first time they've changed it in like forever. Yeah. Okay, so Lex Luger. I thought the video package was incredible. The Lex Express and USS Intrepid body slam of Yokozuna, those were two moments that made me fall in love with wrestling. Right place, right time, right guy. Great nostalgia there. I thought DDP's speech, as it usually is, and I don't say this to be, negative at all, a little self-aggrandizing, right? But at the same time, he did something incredible the way he helped Lex and the way he's helped so many other guys. So it's like, you know what? You want to Barry Horowitz yourself? Go ahead and do it. Luger being able to give his speech, while standing the entire time, holding himself up, that was great, given the condition that he had been in over the last few years. So it was just really touching overall.
Yeah, really good, really sweet. For people who don't know, Lex had I think it was a spinal stroke, like 20 years ago, and that had left him paralyzed from the neck down. And so he's been working for a while, and with DDP to be able to get up and stand and stuff like that. So he mentioned it in his speech, but he was in a really, really bad place for a long period of time. And history has told us a lot of those wrestlers just end up dying tragically or alone or something like that. Yep. So really great that Lex was able to turn his life around and be there and be present and have everybody honor him. So obviously well-deserving, great spot for him to be leading off as well.
Yeah, what DDP has done with some of these guys, it's honestly incredible. Like Scott Hall, unfortunately, took himself way too far for way too long. But, DDP cleaned him up, and he was the best he had been for a long time before his death. So, what he's doing for some of these older wrestlers, and I believe he does it free, brings them into his home and everything. It's just really special. And he's a great guy. So I know that it was sounded a little critical, calling it self-aggrandizing. It was. I'm just being factual, but also like if anyone deserves to do that, it's DDP at this point, right? The whole Michelle McCool and Undertaker deal, congratulations to them, I guess, right? Like Michelle was deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. She definitely got bumped up like 5 years due to her relationship with Taker. I truly believe she should have been inducted with Layla. She easily had the worst speech. It was like she was trying to say something grandiose, but just completely failed. It took forever. It was boring as sin. And, Taker got crazy emotional over her, which it's his wife, and he's really happy, and that's fantastic. But it just, I don't know. It felt like something that they would do at like a dinner with friends, but instead it was in front of, a million people watching.
I'm not gonna lie. I pretty much missed Michelle McCool's entire wrestling career. That's when I was out of wrestling. I've only had to go back and watch that. So a lot of her highlights and stuff, I can't properly contextualize whether she should be in, shouldn't, or should wait or whatever. I can't speak to that.
Sure.
Speech was good. Undertaker was good. It was fine. It was nice that Layla was there, right? They showed her in the crowd. I think I saw. So that was cool. They mentioned Lay Cool and all that stuff. So yeah, it was fine. I didn't have a ton of thoughts because I don't have a connection with her as a character.
I feel like you living in Texas probably understood that speech to a degree more than I did. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like something, it didn't sit well with me, but I don't know. It was very odd.
I mean, look, the Undertaker, we know what they are and what they represent, and not to speak anything on that, I wasn't surprised by anything.
No, I wasn't surprised, but it was not something like when Undertaker did his Hall of Fame speech, it was not like that.
But he also had, I think, a lot more to lean on.
Sure, but he didn't say anything like that though. I mean, it felt more like a sermon. That's really what it felt more like. It was two sermons back to back than it was a Hall of Fame speech for a career.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I'm getting at.
Lex finding Jesus and getting, that's a part of his recovery.
Oh yeah, that's different. Certainly. No, it's totally different. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, when it comes from Michelle McCool, it's a little bit different. But to each their own on that. I didn't have.
There's talking about things that you believe in and love and whatever. And then there's preaching, and I think that was the difference between the two. Is what I would say. Sure. The natural disasters induction, I thought it was quite touching. You could argue, honestly, it was the best of the night, just given the emotion and also the brevity. It's obvious how much it meant to the families. There was a rough cut during this where someone mentioned like how tag teams don't always work, and they shot right to A-Town Down Under in the crowd. And I was like, damn, that's a shots fired situation right there. But that was, I guess, my greatest takeaway, but I did really like it.
Yeah, it was nice. And Typhoon being there to talk about John Tenta and everything, having the whole family up there. Really nice, really touching. Well done.
CM Punk only getting 2 minutes to talk about the first immortal moment, Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. I just thought it was silly given how much time others got. He called it perfect, the greatest match in WrestleMania history. It was kind of cute how Bret wore pink and Austin wore blue, just like fitting their characters on the stage. They didn't seem to like it. I liked the honor they got, the split head bust of them. Bret immediately put himself over as the first to get 3 Hall of Fame rings, which fair enough, like typical Bret Hart, but also totally well-deserved. Austin put over commentary for helping that match deliver. He put over Bret for making him, and he put over the rest of the boys for having similarly successful matches that have yet to be honored. The end was really funny because Austin obviously wanted to chug a beer, so he did. Bret politely sipped one. Pat McAfee was there acting like he was one of the boys. And then Punk, who inducted them, yet is obviously straight edge, just kind of stood there like watching all this transpire. Pat being injected, or I really should say injecting himself into everything these days. We talked about it on Tuesday. It is so massively annoying and off-putting. I don't even actively dislike him, but it's enough already. This felt like he was a mascot running and jumping all around everywhere. Just let Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin have their moment. They can cheer each other. You don't need to cheer and chug a beer with them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and he was trying to be more serious as a co-host with Michael Cole, and I get why the two of them are doing that in a different way, but I didn't need McAfee there either. I think both Bret and Austin just kind of didn't understand the immortal moment thing, like the honor, because it's never been done before. Like they've talked about this match for 30 years
Mhm.
on every interview, documentary, whatever they've done. And so to them, it's just another whatever. They're already multi-time Hall of Famers for everything. So uh, Brett tried to downplay it even more. But Austin tried to kind of bring up the energy a bit in the way he was talking and all that.
Mhm.
I thought the bust of the two heads, I liked the idea. The problem was neither head was cut right down the middle.
Yeah, I
It
didn't
was
like
like
that. Yeah.
it was like a 3/4 or like a 2/3
Well,
head.
it
And
was like
so
half and half,
they
but then
didn't
like
want,
one had extra chin and one had extra forehead, kind of.
yeah, so it wasn't like you mash it together. I think that would have actually worked a little bit better. It was a
I
little
agree.
bit lumpy.
Yeah, I think the idea was great. The execution was not. But Brett and Steve, they just looked at it and they're like, "What the hell is this?" But
Yeah,
but I actually thought it was a
also
good. I
think
thought it was good though. I thought it was the right award to represent the match. I just don't think they did it that well.
Well, and I think once this becomes an annual thing, people will understand it more.
Agreed.
I think that there's a lot of people didn't quite know how to handle it.
Yeah, that's fair. Shawn Michaels' speech on Triple H was really touching and funny as expected. He actually got emotional talking about NXT, both the existence of it and how Triple H roped him into doing it, like doing a few hours a week at first, and then turning it 24/7 with 1 a.m. emails and pain in the ass boss named Paul now breathing down his neck. The idea behind it was that Triple H had his back in the 90s and now he's got his back now. And he ended by fully putting over Triple H as the future of WWE, saying there's absolutely no one who exists that could be better positioned to lead the company's creative. And this screamed at me that Shawn was not just talking to us and not just talking to his audience there, but he was talking to the TKO executives. And it screamed that even more so coming off what The Rock did Tuesday on Pat McAfee's show.
Yep, especially in hindsight now, after what The Rock said, it felt like that even more.
Yeah. Triple H's speech was exceptional. It was probably one of the top 5 WWE Hall of Fame speeches ever. It was long, yes, over an hour, but I loved that he spent the entire time recognizing those that supported and propped him up throughout his life and career. It honored a lot of people, included enough stories to keep you engaged as a viewer. I'm sure it would have been even better if it aired like at a more normal time. What was particularly notable and touching for me was the way he spoke about Mick Foley, who truly made Triple H as a wrestler, just like he did with Randy Orton. Triple H getting particularly emotional about Mick and Mick sharing that even without words. That was beautiful to see. It was similar for Paul Heyman. He also had a great line about Steph McMahon, thumbing his nose at critics of their relationship. Quote, "Not a bad commitment level for a guy who's just trying to get a better spot, huh? 20 years, 3 kids. I'm all in that shit." That was pretty damn funny. That said, there were a couple notable moments to bring up. The first is the least problematic, but easily the most interesting. Triple H not mentioning The Rock once. If he had avoided talking about other teammates and rivals, okay, but he literally mentioned everyone else possible. It seemed purposeful to not mention Rock because he would have fit right into when he was talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I thought in the moment, well, maybe there is some legitimate animosity that exists there. And then, given what happened in that interview that was aired Saturday on the Countdown, where he kind of makes fun of The Rock's Raw on Netflix promo, and then what Rock said Tuesday talking about Triple H and his booking, it's pretty blatant that this was purposeful. And you have to really realize that when you remember that Rock was in the video package ahead of his introduction. Triple H also filleted Nick Khan, which, fair enough, he's the CEO, but it was again notable. The roughest and obviously most controversial were him mentioning and praising Linda McMahon and Vince McMahon. He obviously said nothing about Linda being problematic, despite what she's presently doing, plus her involvement in the Ring Boys lawsuit. He did concede that the Vince situation is complicated. He said that multiple times, but nevertheless put him over for helping his life and career. I saw some saying, well, they're his parents-in-law. What did you expect? Fair case for Linda. I suppose I can accept that. But for Vince, if my father-in-law was accused of the shit that he was accused of, I sure as shit am not praising him, particularly publicly, particularly on television. So that's where I stand with Triple H's speech. Again, largely incredible, but a couple moments that were clearly notable, and that's kind of putting it lightly.
I've got a few thoughts. Let me just start with the Vince part. I understand why people didn't like that. I personally didn't have the same reaction. I thought it was whatever. I get it. Because as someone who is married and has a father-in-law, I understand that relationship. And it's not just that he's the relationship, that it's the relationship. It's that he's the one who brought Triple H into booking meetings back in the day and planning things. He really helped Triple H throughout his career. And this was a speech for Triple H. Like, I wouldn't expect Triple H to say the same thing maybe in an interview or other situations where he's speaking on behalf of the company. But when it's your Hall of Fame speech, it's the one that everybody will look back on and go back to. And it's the one he knows that will kind of stand the test of time, essentially. And I understand wanting to mention Vince, to just say it's a really complicated relationship, obviously, because of what's going on, but he still loves him. It matters to his family. And that's it. And again, he's speaking for himself. He's not speaking for WWE in that situation. So I'm not going to say he shouldn't or should have done it. I'm just saying I get it. As that ties into him always being over the top with Nick Khan, remember, him and Stephanie, and maybe Nick to an extent, there was very much a power struggle. Like, they voted to get Vince out of the company.
They did.
And then he forces his way back in.
And Stephanie resigns immediately.
Yeah. So, like, they have pushed back at the corporate level when they've tried to.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you want to make of that, it's there. So in terms of the Vince stuff, I get it. And I understand if he felt, looking back in history, if he had not said anything about Vince, he may have regretted that. So he did it. Is what it is. Going back, something you didn't mention, the video for him, Nothing Else Matters, Metallica, was really good.
It was.
Terrific video. I love that song. It fits Triple H. Really, really well done video package there. And then, like you said, most of the speech was just talking about people who helped him. It was not like I did this and then I did this. It's these guys brought me along. This guy trained me. I didn't know what I was doing, and this guy helped me. Mick Foley made me tough. And I think that was a really nice way to go about it. He is, outside of, I guess, Vince, he is the defining villain of the Attitude Era.
Absolutely.
In the ring. He was the guy who was the champion. People took the belt off. The Rock was for a minute there, and Vince was Vince.
No, but Triple H spent more time heel, I believe, than any of those guys. Yeah.
Yes, the McMahon Helmsley faction, the I Am the Game promo, like he was. People kind of knock him for a bit. Oh, he wasn't Stone Cold, he wasn't Austin. No, but he was usually on the other side of that, and that side is really important, and he was very good at that. And we know his wrestling brain. That's why he's still doing what he's doing. So
yeah,
I found this for being an hour-long speech. I didn't find it boring. I found it interesting and enthralling. And yes, we've heard a lot of those stories before if you watched any documentary, but even still, there was some new stuff I didn't know. So I thought it was good.
Yeah. What people always criticize with him is the reign of terror, which is completely legitimate to criticize. But you need a B-side for your A-sides, which is really what you're saying. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock were A-sides. And Mick Foley, he was a B-side, but he was a big-time babyface at that time. And you needed someone to work against them. And you needed an antagonist for their protagonist. And that was Triple H. It's very much like, Randy Orton is historically a B-side. I know people look at him now as an all-time legend, and he is. But he's a legendary B-side because John Cena was the A-side, which is why it's so exciting that we're getting them in alternate roles. They're still A-side and B-side, but now heel and face dynamics have switched, 25 years later. It's awesome. But yeah, just because you're a B-side doesn't mean you can't be a legend, doesn't mean you can't be a Hall of Famer, a first ballot Hall of Famer, a lead Hall of Famer. And Triple H, Paul Levesque absolutely deserved this. Again, the whole idea of people... Triple H didn't know about it, and it doesn't really matter. They kayfabe us about this or that, but it was my understanding, and it was something that he mentioned in an interview, that he was not supposed to be the lead of this class. And it was decided without him that he would be. And then he, of course, accepted it and then led this class. So it's just pretty interesting the way this all transpired. I didn't necessarily have any additional thoughts on the Hall of Fame, but I got to say, I found it to be, from a television production standpoint, the best presentation that we've gotten in years, not just since the ones that have started airing post SmackDown, but in a long, long time.
Yeah, and also I like the video packages for the Legends class, essentially, the ones who obviously really deserve to be there. So they got good videos and they honored
Kamala,
some who were there.
Ivan Koloff, and Dory Funk, right?
Yes. Yep. That was really great to see those. I love the setup. It does look better in that stage setup compared to when it's in the ring. And I understand because of the scheduling why they do that. Obviously, next year I don't think we're doing a 1 a.m. Eastern version of this.
Well, no, it'd be Central Time.
It was 1 a.m. Eastern, but it was because it's in New Orleans. But this was in Pacific Time, so like it was long and late, but it wasn't technically late for them. I don't know what the fix is, but I did like going back to a kind of a ballroom stage instead of in the ring. And so I don't know what that means moving forward, but it was a very good, solid show.
I mean, like in Las Vegas, in New Orleans, everything is really close together. So I'm sure there's a venue where they could jump from SmackDown, which will probably be in the Smoothie King Center, I think is what that arena is called.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something nearby where they'll be able to jump and go ahead and do that. It'll be the same time if they decide to do it Friday night, if they do it 2 hours after SmackDown ends, and if that show is still 3 hours at that juncture, then you're talking about a 1 a.m. start either way, which is just massively problematic. And again, it's not just fans on the East Coast that were bothered by this. You saw it to a wrestler. They just were exhausted. They didn't want to be there. And sure, New Orleans is different from Las Vegas to a degree, but to another degree, it's not. Like, there's a lot of things to do, a lot of places to go. You don't want to be cooped up in a ballroom that late on a Friday night when you have, first of all, NXT Stand and Deliver happening the next day, and then, of course, WrestleMania happening the next night. So they just got to figure out the scheduling. It's the number one thing they need to do. If I was WWE, I would build an entire Thursday kickoff in Las Vegas. Do the kickoff event that I think they did Friday before SmackDown. Do that on Thursday. Bring everyone in. Maybe hold some other kind of event, the Slammy Awards or something, midday, and then do the WWE Hall of Fame at night. It completely frees you up to do press and stuff on Friday. You have your SmackDown, your 2 events on Saturday. I don't like that Stand and Deliver is ahead of WrestleMania Night 1, but I'll tell you, this year, despite the time, that crowd was rabid for Stand and Deliver, and that show was fantastic. So it did work better this year than it did last year in Philadelphia. Whether that translates to New Orleans, which actually historically has not a great wrestling city, right? TBD. But that is what I would do. I would start WrestleMania week an entire day early on Thursday, get everyone in, do all your kickoff and award stuff in one day, and then move on to the wrestling Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yep, that's probably the best way to do it. I would agree with that.
All right, Chris, appreciate you jumping on the horn for this, even though it was not completely scheduled. We will link back with you on Tuesday, the next WWE edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. But we still need to continue this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. And by doing that, we need to remind you that here,
I happen to love the number 5.
And I hope you do as well. For $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major TV show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. And I promise you, we have a doozy coming this week on The Rock, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, Paul Levesque, Travis Scott, and a lot more in the world of WWE coming out of WrestleMania. So please make sure you sign up, not only get the additional content, but support the continuation of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast financially, because this show remains free. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. So with that said, let's fully move into NXT, and we are going to start with the NXT Stand and Deliver second look. We're going to run through each match, quick notes that I had while rewatching them, and we'll kind of wrap that up and then go to what happened Tuesday on NXT. So NXT Men's Championship, Oba Femi defending against Trick Williams and Javon Evans in a triple threat. I had gone 4.75 stars A+. I am maintaining that grade. This was like a video game, like a car crash, an action movie. It was so far and beyond what wrestlers with this limited level of experience should be able to accomplish together, especially without even a single veteran in the ring. And I know, well, Javon wrestled for a couple years on Independence. Yeah, but he's 19, 20 years old. I mean, it's ridiculous. The referee kick spot was incredible theater. Oba is on track right now. I mean, again, he's only like a year, 2 years in the industry. He's on track to be the greatest triple threat wrestler of all time. Like, that's just so far. Those are the types of matches that he's put on at such a young age where you say, if this guy gets, I don't know, 10, 12 more triple threats under his belt, before he retires, and it'll probably be more than that, given how often WWE likes to run triple threats. We may be talking about him as the greatest triple threat wrestler ever. He's incredibly powerful, incredibly athletic and skillful. Others can play off of him, and he's not like a statue in the ring like you might get. More so, I'm not calling him a statue because he's crazy athletic himself, but even like a Brock Lesnar, who himself was not involved in many triple threats, but certainly a Big Show or a Mark Henry or any of those guys. Like, those guys just kind of, they're mass and they stand there. Oba moves around. Like, it's crazy what this dude can do. In terms of, Javon and Trick coming out of this, I think Javon's ceiling was raised immensely, and his trajectory obviously has been pointing up for a long time. I would not be surprised if he's NXT champion, by this time next year. Perhaps at Stand and Deliver 2026. There's going to be push to get him up to the main roster as soon as possible because he's so crazy athletic and talented and energetic. But this is the exact type of guy that you can have lead this brand. He's so young, you do not need to rush him because you're going to call him up, and then what's he going to do? You're not going to put him in a main title program. Maybe you put him in a mid-card. He wins it, he loses it, and then what? Tag team? Sure. If they can work out a tag team, I thought they had one with Cedric Alexander. They didn't ever go with it, and then they released Cedric Alexander. Maybe there's someone they can team him up with where that would make sense. You do like a Hardy Boys type of deal and then split him off, 4 or 5 years from now. But they need to manage this guy's career properly. And for me, that starts with keeping him in NXT for at least another year. Maybe longer than that, especially, again, if he wins the title a year from now, keep him in for 2. And I think that would be the right move. Pay him, what you need to pay him, but keep him in NXT. Trick, it does seem like the call-up is coming, and it's probably the right move at this point. There's not much more for him to really do in NXT. My presumption is he gets into a one-on-one feud with Oba Femi, and then once that's over and he doesn't win it, that's when he gets called up. Maybe it's the WWE draft. Maybe it's after SummerSlam. Probably some point this year. NXT Women's Championship, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia Jordan-Grace, and Jada Parker. I went 4.25 stars A, and I am keeping with that grade as well. This match made me badly want to see Vaquer and Grace one-on-one. I know we're going to get that with Julia. I believe we already got it with Jada Parker. I don't remember if that's true, but Vaquer and Grace is going to be a crazy interesting match. Regarding Stephanie, I cannot remember a women's wrestler getting over this hot in such a short period of time in any company ever. It's actually insane. I'm at the point where it feels like her NXT run is just getting started. But if you're WWE and you saw the reaction she got on the Raw after WrestleMania, and I know that's a smarter crowd, I get it, but you need to seriously consider strapping the rocket to her on the main roster. It's such a tough situation because you don't really want to overshadow the other women as you're building this division. But Vaquer is more than ready, and NXT simply does not need her with all the others in this match and beyond still down there. Like, I cannot recall a situation like this before. Like, when Asuka was down there, there were other talented women, sure, and Asuka was head and shoulders above the rest, absolutely. But you needed her. You needed her to lead that division. You don't need Stephanie down there. Jordan can do it. Julia can do it. A combination of Jada, possibly if she stays down there, which she shouldn't, but Fallon Henley. I mean, there's a number of women that can take over this division. Sol Ruka, after she has this North American title reign, you can bump her up. Zarya, to a degree, especially if you give her less of a gimmicked look and make her a little bit more serious. She could easily be the top woman in NXT. So why would you keep a woman like Stephanie down there when she just doesn't need to be there? So I don't know what they're going to do. She seems to be okay down there working on her English and improving her promos. Do you call her up in the draft after SummerSlam? Are you really going to wait another year? I don't think they wait another year, man. I think she's up in 6 months, maybe sooner, truly. In terms of thoughts on the match, I didn't have anything extra. It was a great match. North American Championship ladder match. Kalani Jordan, Zarias, Sol Ruka, Izzy Dame, Lola Vice, and Thea Hale. 4 stars, A-. I maintain that as well. The final 60 seconds of this match may have been among the all-time ladder match finishes. It's often really difficult to get a finish of a ladder match because it's one person climbing, right? Or one person getting knocked off and the other person grabbing the title. That run that Sol went on with the mule kick over the top rung of the ladder, whatever that area is called, then flipping herself over it, then hitting Snow Snatcher off the ladder, and then 2 more ringside, and then climbing back up. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that crowd went crazy, and she's awesome. So, great match. North American Championship for the men, Ricky Saints and Ethan Page, 3.75 stars B. Again, keeping my grade. I just wish it's got more time, especially if we're not going to get it again. It does seem like we might. This was a better finish away from an A-. It was a perfect opener for a PLE. Page did a great job working to put Ricky over, and Saints bumped his ass off throughout this match. Tag Team Championship for Axiom against Hank and Tank. I know people loved this match, and I'm not saying it wasn't very good, but I can't go higher than 4.25 stars A. It just, Hank and Tank, they did their jobs. They brought energy. They were powerful guys. But when you watch this and you watch the sequences, they're all very basic. And what we've seen from Fraxium, their floor has been raised to such a high degree that while this was a great match, it was not one of their best, not even close to one of their best. And again, I'm not disappointed in that because we knew what we were getting, what we were in for really with Hank and Tank. But at the same time, I'm not going to overrate it just because it was fun action, I guess is the best way to put it. It was insane to a degree how much Hank and Tank over-delivered here. It was total chaos. I realized watching this that Fraxium is not just the best tag team in the world right now. They're among the best in recent memory. There is something extremely special about them as a duo, and I'm concerned about what I talked about on Tuesday's show, the idea that they should be getting called up to the main roster, the idea that Nathan Frazier would perfectly fit into Seth Rollins' Dangerous Alliance with Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker as of right now, and if you added Nathan Frazier, it makes so much sense, but you don't want to split him from Fraxium. And could Axiom as an individual operate as a heel alongside Frazier? Like, does that actually work with his character? And do they fit visually as a tag team in the Dangerous Alliance? I don't know that they do. So hopefully if they get called up, my thought is put them on SmackDown. Let that just tag team division run wild. You have a 3-hour show over there. Figure out another team maybe to switch over to Raw in the draft and put someone else in the, Seth Rollins, Dangerous Alliance, whether that is Austin Theory, Carmelo Hayes. Those are people that we've talked about already to that end. D'Angelo family and Dark State, it was a B match. It is. I got to say, while I am into Dark State, and I told you guys weeks ago that this was better than others were suggesting it would be, they are missing the hook in terms of we thought Javon Evans or Trick Williams was going to turn and lead them, and they didn't. And it's just 4 guys kind of running roughshod, and that's fine. But it does feel like they need someone there to prop them up and tell us they're actually important and that they're going to make an impact. Because on Tuesday, this NXT episode that followed, they were just backstage, walking around like normal wrestlers. And it's that's not the gimmick that you've been showing us for the last month regarding these guys, maybe longer than that. So, I'm not totally sure what they're doing with Dark State. Maybe there is going to be a reveal of Trick or Javon or, someone else leading them. And maybe they just wanted to create greater distance between their debut and that happening. That way it feels like someone's taking them over, as a last resort, as opposed to it being their idea from the beginning. But it does feel like there was a missed opportunity there, especially with Trick, to not immediately lead those guys. They're all athletes, collegiate athletes, I think all except for one. Body type, similar, strong, powerful. Trick just turned heel. It really fits together, and it's just an odd situation that they didn't do it. And then, of course, the countdown match, Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade, Metagirls, Fatal Influence, Tatum Paxley, and Gigi Dolan. That was a number 1 contendership elimination match, also a B. and I had no additional thoughts or grades on it. So let's go ahead and move to NXT. Shout out to Vic Joseph, who took a great shot at Booker T to open the show, saying last time they were in the Fontainebleau Theater, he was asleep, so he was referring to the WWE Hall of Fame. I hate to say it, but it was one of the best parts of NXT on Tuesday, and it only lasted a few seconds. So we'll go ahead and explain why Silver King was so displeased with NXT, but I'm going to do it within the context of what happened on the show. NXT Women's Championship, Stephanie Vaquer against Roxanne Perez. This main evented. Roxy backstage said that she was supposed to have a Raw after WrestleMania moment, so she ruined it for Stephanie, who kind of took it from her, and she had no idea that Julia had the same idea. Perez said she knows Vaquer is tired and exhausted from the weekend because she held the title and went through all the obligations before herself, which makes Vaquer prone to drop the title back to her. It was one of Roxy's better promos, actually. She definitely found her voice since turning heel. We anticipated that would happen, and it has. So Vaquer hit a nice springboard crossbody onto the ramp, followed by eat to feet. She also pointed at Booker T before hitting the Devil's Kiss, which was kind of hysterical, especially as it flies in the face of people who insanely criticize him for his commentary. People love it, and the wrestlers love it too. He's literally gotten Trick Williams and Stephanie Vaquer more over because of his actions on commentary. Perez came back with a crossface. Stephanie avoided pop rocks in the corner, countering into a dragon screw and hitting SVB for the clean 1-2-3. Julia came out looking totally badass, staring down Vaquer from the stage. Jordan Grace was visible in an opposite corner without Vaquer noticing as NXT went off the air. Now, Julia, as a heel, there's no question that girl definitely has it. And you can just see the visual and even physical transformation that her face and body and mannerisms go through now that she's in this character.
You have it. You couldn't get rid of it. You couldn't sell it if you wanted to. You are it.
Grace is awesome. We put her over all the time. I don't know why they keep forcing her into this feud. I mean, unless they're going to be running this for 6 months and they want to do variations of a triple threat, Vaquer against Grace and then Vaquer against Julia, and she ultimately loses the title and then gets called up. Maybe that is why they're doing it this way, but yeah, I'm not 1,000% sure why. Unlike Julia, though, Grace has done nothing so far in NXT to deserve a placement in the world title picture. This was a short match at 12 minutes. Vaquer going over with relative ease against a multi-time champion and one of the best in the entire division. All of it happening in a soulless venue that didn't deserve that match at all. More on that in a bit. No Cora Jade, despite Perez walking out on her 2 weeks ago. Or excuse me, not 2 weeks ago, walking out on her 2 days ago in the match on Saturday, I guess 3 days ago in that match. I presume that will come into play next week on TV, but it didn't here. And they were both in the same city. Roxy going out on her back before getting called up to the main roster. That makes all the sense in the world. But if you're going to do that, these two should have been putting on a 20-minute banger on a TV main event in front of a hot crowd. And because of that, this was maddening booking. It was still 3.5, 3.75 stars. It was a fun, good match. But it should have been great. I mean, I don't understand it. And on top of all of that, what Perez said was true. This was Stephanie's third match in as many days. Perez wrestled for 5 minutes, one time. She should have been way fresher, way stronger, and taken Stephanie to her limit at a minimum. Instead, she lost in 12 minutes. It was just dumb. And it was almost like NXT knew this show had absolutely nothing going for it coming in. So they thought just putting it on would float the entire 2 hours, this match. And while, again, it was solid all around, it main evented one of the 2 or 3 worst NXT episodes of the entire year. It may have been the worst episode of the entire year. I just don't want to say that definitively. Short matches, confounding creative, no debuts or surprises. There was one return. Nothing fresh or interesting really starting from a storyline standpoint. It was like the polar opposite of the Raw after WrestleMania. Coming out of a crazy hot stand and deliver, NXT should have done much, much better than this. Maybe Shawn Michaels was just still exhausted from, I guess, staying up 24 hours straight between Friday and Saturday, the Hall of Fame, and NXT stand and deliver. Oba Femi opened hour 2 bragging about burning down the dreams of Trick Williams and Javon Evans. Femi recalled every insult he said about Evans. He walked them back. He actually put him over, saying Javon deserves respect and his best years are still to come regarding Williams. And he keeps calling him Williams, which is pretty funny. He said that he's great, but Oba made it clear he had no respect or belief in Trick being at his level. Trick interrupted, saying Oba took the easy way out pinning Javon. He wants his one-on-one because he's the face of NXT and he never got it, which is true. Joe Hendry, surprised. The guys stared daggers in his back as he did his entrance. He said Williams is not the same guy he teamed with last year. He's changed and needs to go back to listening to the fans, being hungry, not being entitled, because he's recently been such a whiny bitch. Trick rightly pointed out Joe got his ass kicked Sunday, so he should go back to where he belongs. Hendry properly shot back. He was in the middle of the ring in front of 60,000 people fighting a legend in Randy Orton at WrestleMania. Hendry tried to confront Femi. Williams pushed them off. They combined to throw him out of the ring and then stared down. After commercial, Trick threw a fit where he tossed a chair, pushed over a cart. Then he hysterically grabbed like a single metal pole and just started banging it into the ground like a child throwing a tantrum or something like that. And the screen cut off, despite the fact that he didn't attack a camera and no cords were visible. Now, it possibly was a real technical issue. It was really tough to tell. It looked fake as hell. And apparently Ava screamed at him and ejected him out of the building. And he's like, I'm going to come after Oba Femi. Now, the initial part of the segment was fine, but it also came across strange for multiple reasons on Tuesday. My question, why do we keep having to running champion versus champion segments between these two brands, NXT and TNA, when we know the titles are not going to change? There's probably like 150 wrestlers combined. Come up with something more creative than this paint by number stuff. I know Hendry is way more popular than like whoever their top contender is, but like, isn't Nick Nemeth over there? Wouldn't Dolph Ziggler Nick Nemeth match against Oba Femi be a lot more exciting than just seeing Hendry, knowing Hendry's going to lose, at least with Nemeth? He's a former NXT champion, and like, there's the potential that they could actually do something, even if it's only 10%. It's just really annoying to me. Getting Hendry on NXT was a nice moment, but they had like 2,000 people. The theater was cavernous. I don't know the capacity. I guess 8,000 or so, so it was a tiny percentage. It came nowhere close to hitting like his prior appearances did. I was hopeful Oba and Trick would be kept apart until they ultimately fight. But if Williams is coming up to the WWE draft or the main roster at some point around SummerSlam, then maybe they're going to book this for the next PLE, which I believe is Battleground in 1 month's time in Tampa. So as far as the backstage segment, it was straight up trash. I've been more destructive after stubbing my toe in my own house. Really, really bad with Trick there. Women's Tag Team Championship, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez against Tatum Paxley and Gigi Dolan. 3 matches in as many days for the champions, by the way. That's wild for 2025 in particular. Tatum hit a nice apron moonsault ringside. Judgment Day dominated offensively until Gigi on a hot tag hit a Rainmaker, German suplex bridge, and standing senton. Paxley nailed a 450 for a broken fall. Each side hit a blind tag without the others knowing. Liv stopped Cemetery Driver with a codebreaker on Paxley. Dolan took Tahana Bomb and Oblivion in succession, and the heels retained the titles. The NXT crowd was not great in Las Vegas here, given it was like the equivalent of brunch after a wedding. Everyone's exhausted and hungover. They're lacking energy. They probably got tickets thinking that they would have energy for this, but they actually didn't, and no one really wanted to be there anymore. And it was frustrating to have that little energy, despite this being like 8 to 10 times as many people as are usually in the WWE Performance Center. But it was probably the worst NXT crowd since the pandemic. Seriously. I thought the match was extremely strong, both in format and execution. One of the best parts of the show. Very much like the finish, too, which made the challengers look strong in defeat by appearing to be legitimate competitors for the title. It might have been the best Dolan has looked in the ring since her return from injury. Definitely the fastest that she's moved. It seems like Gigi is starting to believe in herself again physically, and that's great. It was also fun that Liv met her equals in like a couple batshit crazy females in Tatum and Gigi. That was just a good time overall. During Stand and Deliver, Penn and Teller played a trick disappearing Lexis King's Heritage Cup. On Tuesday, he asked them to bring it back. They agreed, as long as he respected Magic as real and promised to defend it against a mystery opponent. Extremely like C-level acting, but also kind of fun to tie in, a little Vegas gimmick to everything that's going on. This was really a CW ad though, because they have a show, but I do believe that Penn is a WWE fan, so I guess it was nice that he was involved. So Ricky Saints hit the ring, proud of kicking off WrestleMania weekend. He was in the first match and living up to all his promises so far in NXT. King interrupted, saying it was his time in the ring and he might go after the North American title too. King offered to go Cup versus title, winner take all next week, but I almost called him Starks. Saints told him to worry about his upcoming opponent first. This was an extremely odd segment. Saints basically came out there with nothing to say, which is ridiculous given we've seen him cut promos about absolutely nothing before. Creative really, really screwed the pooch here. It just felt like improv. Then we had the Heritage Cup, King against a returning Noam Dar. Funny spot where Dar tried to rub off King's beard in the middle of the match. Lexis missed a Swanton Bomb. Noam followed with 2 spinning back fists and a Nova Roller. Not called that in the finish, by the way, to win back the cup. Yeah, this just put the bow on a 4-segment string of mind-boggling shit booking. This was the third of the 4 segments, by the way. So you have King challenge for a bigger, better title, get the match, and then lose his lesser title in an extremely short match minutes later. Why should I give a shit about the title match next week when I know this guy is a loser with absolutely zero chance to win? Dar winning the cutback makes sense, so he can reestablish the rules, give it gravitas once again. They've been alluding to this being the story for months now, but doing it in this manner, it lacked any effectiveness whatsoever. This was a 4-minute title match on a post-WrestleMania show. That's a joke, especially ahead of another title match in which the guy who entered with the strap here, in this case a cup, lost and is now the challenger for the other title. Unless they're releasing him, I don't understand what they're doing. Saints backstage expressed pride in Dar winning the cup. Given he came back from injury, he promised to defend his title against King anyway. Ethan Page then walked in as a distraction for King to run Saints into the road case. Lexus blamed Ricky for costing him the cup, promising to take the title. There was zero logic in kayfabe or reality here. These 4 segments were easily the worst creative that NXT has put on TV through the entirety of 2025. And if you told me all of them were written by ChatGPT, I would 100% believe you, because it looked like something that was just generated and thrown on the show. Whoever wrote this, I mean, get your shit together, man, because it was not good. NXT actually showed footage of Bloodsport with Charlie Dempsey and Tavian Heights of NQCC winning matches. Miles Bourne and Ren Sinclair were talking about doing it next time when Dark State came through, shading them for not being able to handle it. Dark State threatened to break them up like the D'Angelo family when Javon came through for a tag team challenge. Dempsey and Heights wound up watching this match from the top of the stage. So we had Evans and Bourne against Dion Lennox and Osiris Griffin. And I'm realizing as I said those names, Evan Bourne. That's pretty funny. Bourne hit a sky-high tope con hero, which was impressive. Dark State hit a pop-up power slam that would have been even more effective without like a delay. Griffin caught Evans flying, drilling him into the ring apron. Lennox hit a spinebuster with the heels then following with the 2-man tossed powerbomb. The appropriate win, given Dark State presumably has experience together and the two faces did not. I'd like to see more than one finish from the group, especially when there's only 2 of them in a match. You know, the toss powerbomb is not as effective if it's not 2 dudes throwing it and then one dude having all the ability, you know, to slam them home or 3 in 1 or whatever the case might be. Dempsey and Heights were clearly unimpressed with Bourne's work while watching on the stage. They were also wearing, I think, NQCC jackets that he did not have. So almost like they're becoming a team because they're Bloodsport guys and they can actually wrestle, whereas Bourne is perhaps just a developmental prospect or something like that. It makes me curious as to what they're going to do. Are they going to split off and do a tag team gear? Are they going to send Bourne to Japan so he gets seasoning like Heights did and then bring him back into the fold? But Bourne and Ren Sinclair, as long as all 4 of them are staying in NXT, they should not be split from this group. They really, all 4 of them work well together. And with D'Angelo family seemingly splitting up, which we're going to talk about right now, they got to keep NQCC together. They are way too entertaining. Stax met up with Luca Crucifino in the middle of the Las Vegas desert. It was a funny scene, given Crucifino pulled up in a red Charger, a proper gangster car. Stax is there hanging out in like a regular old silver SUV like you'd get at a rental car company for the weekend. It was like, did no one think about that? That the Stax, the underboss, should probably have a nicer car than the shady lawyer, or at least they should be equal? It was very weird. Crucifino tore down Stax verbally for turning his back on the guy whom he owed everything to. Stax shut him up, saying, "Hey man, do you understand why we're out here?" To which Luca paused before replying, "Oh, fuh," obviously getting cut off. The suggestion is that he got whacked, I presume, given they were 2 mafia guys in a desert, but it was only Stax, right? It wasn't like there were a bunch of other guys alongside there with him and he didn't have a weapon in his hand. So maybe this was a subversion. They have to dig something up and I don't know, but there's definitely something here. I thought the setting and the acting was better than usual for the group, but WWE did them no favors with the production. I would not be shocked if this was filmed on like an iPhone camera. Some filters would have added some gravitas to it, but look, color me hooked and interested in where it's going with those guys. We later saw Tony D'Angelo storming through a hotel hallway, finding Adriana Rizzo's room. She was angry over Stack's betrayal. D'Angelo expressed his hurt emotionally, and they both realized that Crucifino had disappeared without contacting them. Tony said he would have to take Stax to the mattresses, hey now, and that they can't do a sit down because Stax has declared war. He doesn't want it to be that simple. He told her it wasn't safe to go home. She needed to hide out while it all blows over. It's not safe in Orlando, Florida. Is that what I'm to believe? Okay, fine. Look, granted, not the safest city, but that was historical when you put it in the context of like where the WWE Performance Center is. This was nowhere near as good as the prior segment. It was like going from B-level acting to D-level acting, but it does kind of feel like they're getting ready to write D'Angelo off and send him up to the main roster. It is sink or swim time for him. Like if he's going to make it there, great. And if he's not, you can't keep him in NXT forever, or you do, and he just gets complacent, and it's a tough situation. NXT is really like, I want to say a 4-year kind of ceiling at a maximum these days, and I think he's reaching that ceiling, D'Angelo. Hank and Tank and Sol Ruca celebrated their title wins along with Thea Hale and Zarya when Jada Parker, Kalani Jordan, and Fatal Influence came in one after another, saying they hated Hale's energy and didn't miss her while she was gone. She needed to get put in her place. Jada and Lonnie dipped out. Fallon Henley told JC Jane to put Hale in her place. JC snapped back, hey, just do it yourself. So Fallon, after she left, kind of shaded her under her breath. She's like, hey, JC couldn't do that anyway. I liked that. It leads me to believe Henley might be out of her way from Influence and hopefully out of NXT to the main roster. She was ready a year ago, and this group has been mid at best. So we got Hale against Henley. Fallon hit a nice pump handle suplex with Thea rolling outside. When JC tried to help, she accidentally booted Henley in the head. Hale knocked Nyx off the ropes and hit a double underhook twisting suplex before winning with a Kimura lock. It would have been solid booking if it was not insanely short for the second match in a row. I mean, this was less than 3 minutes. So combined with the other one, they were 2 matches combined less than 7 minutes. That's horrendous. If that was Fallon going out on her back to the main roster, which is really something I'm just projecting, and it could have been the start of a storyline that ends around the draft with Fatal Influence and JC to get her out, that would be a positive development off screen. But even so, it was ridiculous for the match to be that short, given she's an ex-North American champion. So frustrating. Sol and Zarya backstage were interviewed about the ladder match. Ruca was proud of herself when Morgan and Rodriguez came through, teasing Zarya for her best friend being a double champion. Sol won the WWE Speed strap last week, and Zarya being the only one out of all 4 of them without a strap at all. Ruca shot back that she might want to be triple champion, going after the women's tag team titles because nothing will come between Zaruka. Nice little segment. I would definitely be down to see that match, and I wouldn't be surprised if that potentially was used as a catalyst for Zarya turning on Sol. But again, I'd keep them together. I just would. I'd let them remain best friends, even through Sol losing the title. And I think that they would make interesting women's tag team champions. I also think when you consider them and Paxley and Dolan and some other options that are down in NXT, they really might want to consider bringing a separate NXT women's tag team championship back, unless these women's titles from the main roster are going to continue rotating as regularly as they do. The problem, though, is right now, every time a main roster women's champion team comes down to NXT, it's great that there's a match. We always know they're going to win. At some point, you're going to need one of the tag teams in NXT to win, go up to the main shows, and then come back to NXT and then lose them in NXT or lose them on one of the main shows. But, if it's cool that the title gets defended on all 3 programs, but if there's only 2 programs on which it's capable of being changed, then that's when you should just bring back the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships. Shawn Spears thanked Ava backstage for allowing him to look out for his friends. We don't know what that meant. We're going to find out next week. Yoshiki Inamura told her that his time is coming to an end in the United States. He's going back to Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan, but it's been an honor to be in NXT, and Ava deserves more respect. He said he feels bad and his heart breaks because he came so close to winning the tag team titles. He started fake crying and bending over. She felt bad for him and granted them another title match. Josh Briggs came in and checked on him, and Yoshi revealed it was all an act, an old Japanese secret. Pretty damn fun, okay? I'm glad he got a solo segment to show his character a little more before he leaves, and it was sensible, as a way to give them a third title shot they do not deserve, because Ava is a total pushover. Obviously, this is a expected retention for Hank and Tank over a team that's getting split up anyway. Excited for Briggs to go back solo at the end of this. That match for the tag team titles should be fun. And then Briggs back in the singles division, possibly going after Ricky Saints a couple months from now for that North American Championship. I would be down to see that. There was a brief vignette of Andre Chase returning to his classroom, lifting a sweater out of his briefcase, exclaiming, "We're effing back, baby." I'm curious to see what the 2.0 version of Chase U looks like. It's going to need to be something a little bit different this time around, not just in terms of the personnel, but the way they handle everything. You can't just go back to the exact same gimmick again. And then the question is, First of all, we haven't seen Ridge Holland in, I think, months. What does he have to say about that? Now, again, the stipulation was only that Chase could no longer associate with Duke Hudson, Thea Hale, and Riley Osborne. Well, Hudson fired, Hale off as singles established. Riley Osborne, no idea where he is. He might be in Evolve. I've missed the last 2 or 3 episodes, so perhaps that's where he's hanging out, but not on NXT right now. So in theory, Chase is clear to do this, but you have to imagine that Holland will still hate them and be angry, right? I don't know. So we will certainly find out about that next week on NXT. But as you can tell, I just thought this was a failure of an episode. You're following up Stand and Deliver, which got rave reviews. I bet if you asked people, each night of WrestleMania versus Stand and Deliver to give a final grade, they would put Stand and Deliver as a better show over either night of WrestleMania. I think I did. I think I said it was a 94, 95 out of 100 on the instant analysis. It was a great show. Expectations were high coming out, and this was just a thud all around. Didn't develop anything, not anything meaningful at least. Some really poor booking in the men's mid-card. Just frustrating. And the short matches, including one with Roxanne Perez and Stephanie Vaquer, which just should not have happened. So, folks, that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, finally clearing the deck on WWE when it comes to WrestleMania 41 weekend. We will be back Friday morning, as mentioned, with a 4-show AEW retrospective, the last 2 weeks of Dynamite and Collision, all in one program right here. Excited to get that off my plate as well. That way I can take a breath over the weekend, although it is the NFL draft, and then kind of start the clock fresh going into WWE next week. But on the way out here, I do need to remind you that here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Not only for full-length audio, but full-length video interviews, clips from past interviews, and a lot more at Getting Overcast on YouTube. Follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. And now that I say that, I realize I did not go back and get your questions and comments about NXT. That's how crazy this week has been. I'll circle back. I'll respond to some of you individually after this. My bad on that. But you heard us on our WrestleMania second look inject a lot of those into the Tuesday show. And that is why we always ask for feedback, your thoughts, and your questions, because it helps us enhance our shows. Also, please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news analysis every week, and we have some big-time analysis, as I mentioned, on The Rock, Triple H, Cody Rhodes, Travis Scott, John Cena. That whole deal, plus some extraneous content coming out of WWE WrestleMania 41. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. This is the Silver King signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.